Today's video is powered by Hauppauge. Skip it up and that up. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Rich of Review Tech USA, and now you could have a shitting contest with your wife while a random person stares at you. So today's shout out goes to Epic Chocolate Gaming. He sent me a link to today's article where an EA senior engineer calls the Wii U crap. Literally. I'm not, trying to sensationalize it. He called it crap. Here's what his tweet about the Wii U had to say. His first one, the Wii U is crap. See, I told you he didn't beat around the bush with that one. Less powerful than Xbox 360, poor online store, weird tablet. Nintendo are walking dead at this point. He also goes on to say on Twitter, Nintendo are still operating like it's 1990. I agree with that somewhat. They should have done a Sega and offered Mario/Zelda as PS4 Durango exclusives. Yeah, I'll get into that later. He then goes on to say, instead they make this awful console and this, just stop it, just make great games. It is an utterly intentional decision to focus our resources on markets which actually matter, like mobile and Gen 4. And one more thing he said, Nintendo platforms have always been very poor revenue-wise for third parties, only Mario and Zelda make money. This is such an interesting situation for so many reasons. Didn't EA know, they went on stage on E3 2011 and they were all but dry humping Shigeru Miyamoto, and how they were going to be, strong partners with Nintendo, and I'm sure they had the dev kits back then. You didn't know it was crap back then, EA? I'm scratching my head with that one. Now, the thing where he goes that Nintendo still runs like it's 1990, I gotta say that there is some truth to that, man. Nintendo still thinks that their name is going to sell their product. There should have been that must-have Wii U exclusive when the system launched. I talked about that in a 20-minute video before. I'm not going there again, but yeah, he's right. Nintendo, you have stiff competition now. It isn't like it was back in 89, 90 when, you only had Sega, and Sega really only gave you a run for your money with the Genesis, and you still outperform them. It's much different now. Your audience has matured too, and they're not just looking to play, Super Mario 47. They're looking for other experiences on top of what you have to offer. Nintendo, you have great games. I'm not, knocking your games. I love Nintendo exclusives, but I'm just letting you know, people are looking for more than that now. It isn't 1990 anymore. He's right about that. The whole thing about, Nintendo quitting making hardware, Nintendo has a shit ton of cash. Even Pachter said that before. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. Nintendo is not in the same, financial dire straits that Sega was, where they had to stop making hardware before they just buried themselves. Nintendo's nowhere near that, especially with the 3DS selling very well. They're 30 million units now. Nintendo's not at that point yet, dude. They're nowhere near what Sega was when the Dreamcast started to flounder, so can't even compare the two. And this is where I think most of this is coming from. And his last tweet kind of revealed how what's really making EA kind of change their mind on the Wii U, is that they don't feel they can make money on it. Third-party games don't make money on Nintendo platforms. And there's truth to that, too. It's kind of honestly been that way since the Nintendo 64. If you think back, I remember when the Nintendo 64 came out, everyone was all psyched about all these different games, including Square making Final Fantasy VII, and nothing came to fruition. And that was mostly because of the hardware limitations with the cartridges, but it happened again with the GameCube because, it was, even though it was an optical-based medium, it was because you could only fit a gig of storage on those discs, and that made third-party developers, and the Wii U and the GameCube, just didn't sell that well. And that made developers shy away and go over to the Xbox and PS2. And even with the Wii, again, it just, because of, I guess you could say, due to the lack of hardware oomph that the original Wii didn't have compared to the Xbox 360 and PS3, third-party developers, again, it was only really the first-party Nintendo titles that made a shit ton of cash on the Wii. Nintendo, you need to really rebuild your relationship with third-party developers. You need to do it now. You need to I don't know, man. Just go to EA, and even if you have to take a loss, like cut down the royalties you make on third-party titles with them just to get them back in the game. Get Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't think it is coming to the Wii U, but get Grand Theft Auto 5 on the Wii U, man. You got to do what you got to do to not only let developers know they could sell, but to let consumers know, hey, if I buy a Wii U, I'll get those great third-party games. It'll be interesting. It's also going to be, time's also going to tell too. I understand that on paper, the specs of the PS4 look to be a gigantic leap over the Wii U, but I want to see real-world performance. Is there any kind of bottlenecks with the PS4? Is that, that low-power 8-core CPU, is that going to hold back games, and are the games not going to look that much different than the Wii U? More than likely they are. I understand that, but hey, you never know, man. So that's going to be interesting too. It'll be interesting to see a couple things when the next gen systems arrive. Will it really be that huge of a leap over the Wii U? And two, will developers change their mind when the install base of the Wii U increases? Which I think it's all but safe to say that it will. I think it's almost a guarantee that the Wii U console will start selling more. I said this before in a previous video. This whole debacle with EA and the Wii U, I think back to when the PS3 first launched and Gabe Newell had a lot to say about it. He went on to, he was even bold enough to say that Sony should have apologized to its consumers for the PS3. They should make a new system and say that was a mistake. We apologize to you. He went on to say that it really had no more power than a Pentium 4 unless you really knew how to utilize the SPEs. He just really called it a disaster. He was like, Sony's a laughing stock for the PS3. If you remember, that's pretty much what he said in a nutshell. And I remember when, I think it was E3 2010, and now everything changed with the PS3. They lowered the price point. The install base was growing every day. And third-party games were starting to sell on it. So Gabe Newell walked out on stage and said, he made a joke, and yep, we're developing Portal 2 for the PS3, and it's going to be, at least for consoles, the definitive version. Yeah, it's funny how money talks. So a couple years from now, or even a year from now, things could change between EA and Nintendo. Let's see. So anyway, folks, make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And if you have an interesting news story you would like me to discuss, private message me with a link via YouTube. And if I use your news article, I will give you a shout out in the video and feature your YouTube channel in the description. Have a good one.